Those of you who've been with us for a few years may notice that the data reports look very different. Part of the reason is because we now have Kelly Enquist on board, and she gave them a complete makeover, and they look amazing, and I really hope that they're more user-friendly and that you'll be able to really read the data and understand the data and implement it in your work. The other reason why the data reports look so different is now we are including juvenile justice data. So about the second half of your data reports will be about the juvenile justice side of things. Now, just a word about that. In the future, we would like to include more juvenile justice data. Right now, that's fairly limited just because of what we have access to and what is available. But we do hope that in the upcoming years, we can really beef up that section and include more detailed team data for the juvenile justice. So the purpose of these data reports are to not only give your team just a snapshot of what has happened in the past year, but also give you a sense of where your team might work on in your particular area. So for most measures, we provide both state and team data just to give you a sense of where you fall in the state. We know that teams are all different, your populations are very different. But we did want to give you a context for where your numbers may fall. And so I really hope that you use these data reports and you look at them in your teams and you get a sense of what maybe you might want to focus on in the next year or so, what case progression numbers are not looking so good, what is looking good, and work on that in your teams and figure out where you might want to focus in the next year or so. On the front page, we have just a little bit of demographics for both the state and the team. You may already have a sense of the population that you're serving, but we just wanted to give you a snapshot of what population is in both your state, in the state and in your area, just so you to provide like a background of the rest of the numbers. We do know that data can't really tell the whole story. So data is never good or bad, so I don't want you to see numbers and think, oh my gosh, this is bad data. Data is not bad. But what it can tell you is what you might want to work on. And so you know your team better than I do. You're going to know what those numbers really mean and what needs to be done to change those numbers if anything does concern you. For the rest of the child welfare measures, there's a big section that's from Fostering Court Improvement. This is an online database that collects data from the AFCARs and NCANs. These are two national reporting systems, and they report them online. And the Nebraska data is actually available to anyone who would like to access it. The website is on there. It's fosteringcourtimprovement.org/NE, and you can get the data statewide by district, by county, and now they're actually reporting it by team. And there are many, many measures on there. We've selected a few for you that we think will be most helpful. But if you do think that there's anything else on that website that could be helpful, I do encourage you to check it out. They don't do the super fun graphs and things like that that we try to give you, but it is there and it can be a really useful tool. They post that data either once or twice a year depending on the measures. A big bulk of the child welfare data is the case progression. And this is data that we pull down from Justice, which is the case management system for those of you who don't know. And the purpose of this data is we want to give you a sense of how long is it taking kids to move through the system. And in your particular team, is there an area where kids are getting bogged down? Are kids taking a long time to get to adjudication? Or are they rushing to adjudication, but then taking a long time to get to a review hearing? Something like that will give you a sense of where, if you're not happy with their overall progression, where should you focus your attention? I would like to point out, though, that we do have missing data reported there for every hearing. And this is because we can only report the data that we can pull down from Justice. And so Linda Leatherman from Justice and the Through the Eyes team have been working with clerks across the state to improve on this missing data because we really want to be able to report accurate data to everyone across the teams. And the great news is it's working. Statewide, the missing data has improved tremendously from 2012 to 2013. As you can see, just in Lancaster County, our first appearance hearing orders improved from 68.1% missing to 20.6% missing just in 1 year. So that's huge, but it's of course is not perfect yet, and so we would encourage the teams to continue working on how can we improve that missing data and what can we do as a team to focus that. Now, there are several reasons why your team may have missing data. We tried to only include cases that should have progressed to each hearing. However, as we all know, sometimes those hearings just don't happen for whatever reason. It could be a really complicated case. The hearing could have been continued. An attorney could have had to reschedule, something like that. However, it's also very possible that a hearing did occur and it just was never entered into justice. And that's why I really encourage you to take a look at that missing data. Every team is going to have some missing data, but if you have a high percentage of missing data, I would encourage you to figure out why is that occurring and what can we do to address it. Now, if your team doesn't have a case progression graph for a certain hearing, that is because you either had too high of a percentage of missing data, so if it's more than 50%, we didn't report it because that wouldn't be accurate, or you just had too few cases. So if it were 5 or fewer cases, we did not report that as well. The time to case closure looks a little bit different than the rest of the graphs, and that is because we know when we're comparing 2012 to 2013 data, those 2013 cases just will not have closed. We all know it can take a long time for a case to work its way through the system, and so we didn't want you comparing that missing data and thinking, oh no, 17.5% 2012, but in 2013, what did we do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Those cases are still open. It's very possible that they're still in the system. So we included that in the breakdown so you could get a sense of where everything is falling. Are there any questions about the child welfare data right now? Okay, as I mentioned, we are now including juvenile justice data. This came from a variety of sources. We did get some data from Justice. We also worked with the Nebraska Crime Commission, probation, and the annual kids count, or the Voices for Children annual kids count Nebraska report. So we're really trying to pull together data from a wide variety of sources to present to you kind of a picture of your juvenile justice cases. And like I mentioned, in the future, we do hope to provide even more detailed and a wider variety of measures. So in the future, we would like to present case progression data for juvenile justice as well as child welfare. We didn't want to do it this year because we haven't worked out the critical codes or the codes that we would like to focus on. But Christine, our new juvenile justice director, and Justice have worked out these 10 critical codes for juvenile justice cases that we would like teams to focus on in the upcoming year. These are just 10 hearings that we think it is important to be able to report to the people who work with the juveniles and be able to tell them how long it's working through the system. So if you're working on your justice data, your justice case management, these are the 10 codes that we would like you to focus on. We worked with the Nebraska Crime Commission to give you some data on diversion programs across Nebraska. If you have a diversion program in your area, you might already be aware of that, but you may not. So we provided a breakdown of the number of juveniles who are enrolled in diversion programs and those who are discharged successfully and those who fail to comply. And we also provided on page 19 a map of the diversion programs across Nebraska in case you aren't familiar with them. This is current as of November 2013. We know that there are some counties who are working on diversion programs currently or have been as of recently, so it may not include all the diversion programs, but that is current as of just a few months ago. The next project that we would like to talk about right now is an online data dashboard. And on the back of your data reports, we have just a snapshot and also the website that this is available. The purpose of this data dashboard is to allow the team, so if you do decide to implement a new initiative or a new project to address missing data, for example, or if you notice that it's taking a long time for the children to get to an adjudication stage and you try to address that, we want to provide more frequent and up-to-date data and be able to, and so you can track whether or not that initiative is working. So again, this is justice data, and we are pulling it down 4 times a year currently, and it is just child welfare case progression. In the future, we would like to add on juvenile justice once we have everyone trained on those critical codes. We will add juvenile justice, and we would also like to potentially improve it to about monthly. So we'll really be giving you up-to-date frequent data, so you can check it frequently. And once you go to that website, you can click on your county or your team, and it'll come to those 7 time periods that we include in the case progression data. And you can look at your data in 3 different ways. The first is just a breakdown of how many cases are taking each time period to progress to that particular hearing. The other way you can compare your team's data for the historical trends, this is the median number of days, and this is time to case closures. This is the median number of days that it takes a case to close. And like I said, as we add more data, that you can look at it over a longer period of time. So you'll be able to see each quarter for a whole year. And the last way you can compare your team's data, and you can compare your team's data for 2 different quarters. You can compare your team's data to the state, or you can compare your team's data to another team. So if you know that there's another team out there that has a similar population or size, you can compare and see where do you fall. So my email address is on the data reports. I really encourage you to contact me if you have any questions or comments about your data, or if you need any help with how should we use this, what should we do, what do these numbers mean, I am more than happy to work with you. So thank you very much.